Bam Pow Comic Hour with your hosts, Andrew Garner.
And Chris Ramos.
And we're back in the studio, finally. And we are so excited to be back. And tonight, we are reviewing the infamous From Hell by Alan Moore with Eddie Campbell as the artist.
Artist and colorist.
And colorist, absolutely. And we chose this book. This was going to be one of our spooky reads, but we're still celebrating the spooky.
It's still spooky read.
It's still a spooky reads.
It's no less a spooky read. And actually,
Doesn't matter the time of year. It's still spooky.
Anytime you're listening to this, it's been on our list a long time, actually. And this is one of those, I think, that people see on the shelf. And for one reason or another, it feels a little daunting. Like sometimes it's like the size of it or just the reading of it. Because
the
serious.
Title is From Hell.
Yeah.
It could be it might be a polarizing title just because like you either know the background or the author, maybe the artist, but also like, does that title like immediately pull towards you like, hey, I want to grab this up. This looks like easy reading.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because when you see it, it's like, okay, this is a pretty huge graphic novel. I mean, it's I don't know how many pages it is actually, but
there is
a lot.
There's
300.
epilogue. Yeah,
that's my guess. But it's also black and white. It's all hand drawn, just ink, pen and ink, and so that also might
14 chapters.
Some people just to say, hey, it looks like it's hard to read. It's written in very, I don't know, old English, sort of Irish.
It's like when you're watching the BBC.
Yeah. Yes.
Versus American television.
It's very English.
It's very English, very British. And they just have a different way of speaking and narrating.
Different way of telling story.
Telling stories.
Telling
absolutely.
the long, it's a slow burn.
It is. And not that it was bad or anything. It's just it takes a bit of your mind to get used to the world.
Right. So for those of you who don't know, From Hell is a version of the Jack the Ripper story told by Alan Moore. And it really focuses on a folklore, sort of urban legend, maybe an explanation where the British royalty was frequenting like the prostitution area back in the day, and there is question if there was an illegitimate son of some sort or heir to the throne. And
honestly, like
that was
I think about like Game of Thrones. I'm like, hey, we did come too far from that.
Yes, I mean it was really like that, and so there was a theory out there that Jack the Ripper was either a agent or cover up to sort of get rid of these prostitutes that were having kids that could have a claim to the throne.
Yes, absolutely. With one of the princes.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, think about like a scandal and a cover up. and
then it became Jack the Ripper.
And then, Jack the Ripper. And I didn't know these stories to be like associated together until I read this. And yes, some of this is fictionalized, but some of it is also based on a truth to it as well.
I think a lot of it in here is Alan Moore really being close to this story just from his British background. Alan Moore is one of the more well-known British invasion comic book guys from the 80s.
Yep.
And this story for the whole world is just really, really well known for being connected to London and just tragedy that happened in 1888 is Jack the Ripper. So this story, for him to tell, for Alan Moore to tell this story is on point. Perfect for Alan Moore to say, I'm going to do the Jack the Ripper story, because there really isn't many other. I mean, you can't just take an artist that's, from the USA or somewhere else and say, I'm going to tell this seminal story about London. And
kind of looking at Alan Moore's bibliography. So this is his first comic was, or one of his first notable works was like V for Vendetta. We talked about Miracle Man, The Ballad of Halo Jones. We talked about Swamp Thing. Watchmen was 86. Killing Joke was 88. And then From Hell was 89 to 96. So that's If you think about, he did all that work,
He's
kind
like,
of all that superhero work, or I mean, V for Vendetta was kind of the closest thing I think to what this felt like in
yeah,
terms of like reading
I could see
experience.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Even though that was more fictionalized even more than this. Um, but just that vibe. If you like V for Vendetta and you want something more of that vibe or true crime or something like that, then look at this.
Yeah, I think what I really enjoyed about this book, well, first I will
Yeah, what was your impression of the book?
well, I
And
guess
you
I
haven't
should
read this
say
before either, right?
no, I haven't read this before. I
Okay.
mean, I've always seen it.
Right.
Never had a copy of it. And then um just also I think I was kind of in the camp of saying, "Oh, that's a good big someday read to
Yeah.
focus on it,"
Right.
because it just
I met Eddie Campbell at C2E2 at that con, and I had bought the color edition from the artist himself. That was really cool. But I think that copy I gave you, I think
yeah,
I got it on sale
yeah.
for a really like nice price.
I mean, this soft cover, black and white, is what you have seen on the shelves forever.
Sure.
This is the probably the most well known copy, and then recently they colored it.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if the
It's
colored version
recent.
sort
Yeah,
of
as recent as like 2021.
yeah, all right,
Yeah.
so a few years ago, and that reinvigorated everyone's interest in this. I think the coloring goes a long way. They recolored Killing Joke. They recolored Watchmen. There's a lot that they've
Sure.
recolored, and some
Oh,
people,
yeah.
like it and don't like it.
That's interesting.
You
Yeah. I
know,
wonder what the community thought of the recoloring.
yeah, that they went
Because I
back to
mean,
it.
it's not like we were going from one artist's perspective or one colorist's perspective, even of what they did first time, and then somebody came back and recolored it. This was going from a black and white that hadn't been colored in 20 years
Right.
to something that has never been colored and just adding that interpretation.
But it was colored by the artist.
And it
So
was
that's
also colored
interesting
by the
too.
artist.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, and that adds in because now he has the opportunity to do lighting. He has the opportunity to do shadowing, silhouette, what needs to be bright, what needs to like cityscapes and things like that. We were talking about like the rain
Yeah. Yeah.
or the fog.
Well, and I think too, for me, looking back on reading this, because I read it not ideally. I read it really choppy, and I usually don't like to read very choppy. I like to read in long runs. This is not a one session read, just so people
No,
know.
no,
Yeah. It just won't be. It's just too much. It's too much. So
yeah,
the content and the size of it is just too much to read in one. But so I read it really choppy, like really choppy, and then
yeah.
kind of went back through it really fast and refreshed my brain now that it took a while. So here's my like super hot take on
Oh
it.
yeah, I'll give
It
mine too.
it takes a while to get into the characters because it's hard to tell what the characters are and what they're doing. Some of that
Yes.
is due to the artwork in it is hard to tell what one frame to the next is
Okay.
doing, right?
Sure.
It's a little muddy, and I think and that adds to
The
the
grittiness of
the
it.
gritty, the old
The
feel, the like, you feel like you're peering into an old photograph that you're trying to
yes. Yeah.
decipher.
Sure. I mean, we talked about the story takes place in the Victorian era, which is
Yeah.
like the 1880s,
Yeah, late
88.
1800s, right
Yeah.
before 20th century.
Yes.
And you feel like you're looking at something that was printed, 200 years ago, and you're like trying to figure out like, oh, okay, I see this guy over here. Um, they kind of all have the same look to them too, a little bit. But the
Yeah.
story pulls you through whether you want it or not, right? Like, so you're
Sure.
reading it, you're like, oh, I see what's happening here. They're adding another layer to this character, or hey, they're changing the narrative a little bit, so what you think is going to happen is not.
Right.
And then there is a fair amount of violence in here, and there's
Yes,
a fair
this is a
amount
mature
of
read.
yeah,
We'll put that.
fair amount
Keep
of
that.
violence,
Yep.
fair amount of just nudity and just very
Yep.
adult themes. So those were like a little hard to kind of work into as you're deciphering it.
Sure.
And the only other thing, my other hot take is the accents that are in here. Like there's an Irish accent. There's an
Oh,
English.
yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes writing out an Irish accent and then reading through it is just difficult. Just becomes difficult.
Sure.
But you get used to it.
Yeah. My hot take, and I kind of told you through off the record stuff, was like, it took me, I think, after the first to get to chapter 5 for me to get into this book. For me, it was really hard to figure out kind of like what's the plot, what's keeping it driven, what are the characters what are the characters and things that they're saying that I should pay attention to. There was this whole chapter, I think it was chapter 3, if I remember correct, or maybe it's 4, where he's talking about the fourth dimension.
Yeah.
That I'm sitting there scratching my head. I'm like, there's some things Alan Moore and some of our other artists with big ideas, they talk about these grand concepts, love them for it, but trying to make sense of it, it's a little hard. And I think I had to like read some summaries and things like that. It's like, oh, this is like his concept of time. This is like very big concept. And then like there's some religion mixed in with it. And like he believes very strongly in like the Freemasonry.
Yeah.
So there's ties with that. There's also like,
well, that was part of that conspiracy idea, is that the Freemasons were working with them to clean this up.
And then it was like this female versus male dominancy, weird stuff going on. So he's trying to weave all these points together to like give motive to what would be Jack the Ripper, or a suspect to Jack the Ripper, which makes sense after you get through those chapters. And you're like, okay, man, I got to get some plot motive or somebody I can, gravitate towards. It made sense. Like when you're talking about, I think it was like after the prologue where, like the prince and the person he was with, he's like, oh, this kid's going to go off somewhere. But nobody can find out about the scandal starts. When the scandal starts, you're like, okay. And then you start talking about like the fourth dimension, and then you're like, where's the crime going? And so once I got to 5, I can be like, okay, there's some flow here. There's this detective I can kind of go through. You also get to follow William Gull, and you're like, oh, he's a really big character. And then some of like the women that were in this, you're like, okay, they're reoccurring. It's almost like you're watching a movie. Like we go from different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start getting that cohesion, I was like, okay, I understand what's going on. Yeah. And that made way more sense for me.
I saw that too. Like, it was one of those reads where it's like in your brain, you have this constant voice saying, no, you got to get through this, because
yes,
this is
I think looking back, some of that stuff mattered.
This is an acclaimed graphic novel for a reason.
Right.
So
you have all this high expectation.
Find the reason, right?
Yes.
And then, so you're like, all right, I'm going to muscle through this. It's kind of like when people say, hey, you have to read, this classic novel, this like, the Odyssey.
Or
like,
Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah. I want to get through this. I want to see what the hype is. And it did take a while to really put you in this world, where some other comics, you were in that world instantly,
right?
And this just took you a little while to fall into it. But the other thing is, the fourth dimension stuff is like, all of a sudden the book starts thinking about the story of like, has this inspired other people throughout time? Because that's the same idea as if, I guess I just mentioned the Odyssey or Medusa or, Clash of the Titans, stuff like that. It's like, does this inspire other heroes of our day? Like, are those heroes of that day?
Sure.
So this, as much as this was like, hey, there was a murder, in the late 1800s, this was super sensational. Like, oh my gosh, how is this possible?
Right.
And nowadays, unfortunately, we hear about that a lot more, but they didn't hear about it a lot back then because there was no way to get information out so quickly. So I think with that fourth dimension, it was saying like, now as the murderer, he's now sort of entering this
This other like spiritually.
yeah, but it's also entering the mainstream of storytelling. So like he's
Mm.
saying, I
Okay.
am now
Okay.
this murderer and my story will be told and told and told. And so
Oh.
then he started bouncing through. I did see something online where it said that when he was bouncing through like
Yes, I think that was
other
towards the end.
but he
Yeah.
was bouncing through other decades, he was running
Yes.
across other serial
Yes.
killers. And I was like, I
Right.
didn't recognize any other serial killers, but I guess there were other serial killers he was talking to.
Sure. Oh, I could have been.
And yeah, there was. I was like, we'll have to look that up. But that's the other thing too. Like, aside from that, most of the events that are happening in here, like, you pretty much have three main characters. You have
Yes.
Sir William Gull.
Yep.
Gull. He's the murderer, I guess.
Yes, and he starts out such nobility, and then you're like, oh no, he's somebody.
He's the Queen's royal physician, so
Right.
he like is good with a knife.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of he makes himself out to be like a hero. He learned well. He wanted to serve his country. He had a well-respected reputation, and then
He was always dressed well.
yeah,
Like,
right,
he wasn't just some vagabond.
right. And then there was the detective
Inspector Eberlein, Frederick Eberlein.
He wrote him pretty well. I like that.
Really well. And actually, these are real people. Like Eberlein was a real detective in the London police. He, was trying to be a good cop.
Yes,
He was trying to do the investigation correctly, but he also just was overwhelmed, I think, with just the like hysteria of it, and just like, you got to solve this crime. Why can't you keep us safe? And there just weren't any clues. There's nothing to go on.
right.
And that was the hard part, is it happened literally in the middle of a busy city. Was it five murders?
Let's see.
4 or
Yeah,
5?
it was 5. 4 of them were legit, and one was like, they were pretending to be somebody else, I think.
Yeah. Let's see. The book is dedicated to them. Let's see. The book is dedicated to Polly Nichols, Annie Chapman, Liz Stride, Katie and Dowse, and Mary Jean Kelly.
Yep.
So, but anyway, that happened right in the middle of town. Like, people were going about their day, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, someone just got killed.
Right.
And so that was the hard part, is this detective was like trying, this inspector, like, I need to figure this out. People are literally right here.
Because he was always like reactive, or somebody, they would all meet up. They would go about their separate ways. Sometime during the night, somebody approached them, and then they were gone.
Yeah.
Dead.
Well, and
spoilers.
Yeah, and then the third person was Mary Kelly, who was the last prostitute that was killed. But
yeah,
she's well known as the final prostitute that was killed by Jack the Ripper.
Yeah,
and
each one of them had like distinctive personalities, like people they're
good characters to put in a story.
Or like they had a strong supporting cast that made you care about them and what happened to them. I thought that was really well done, very interesting.
I just also thought, like, okay, so you are meeting these characters, you're reading the story.
Right. And then you got to understand like the wealth status too.
Yeah, that's true. Like, there really are the haves and haves not. Like, the Victorian society, and then this Whitechapel,
East End of London. And that was where like most of the poor lived.
And then they only had one way, a couple ways to make any money at all.
Right. I'm trying to think of like other movies that have like depicted it like that, but there's probably other ones out there. But this was like really showed it, like they're just scrapping enough to just even get medicine or get food, or the most they could probably get a beer from the tavern if they really asked nicely. I mean, or their gentlemen, that they met up with, they might buy a beer or something.
Right. Yeah. Actually, that was a couple parts too.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was neat that you could read this story and say, okay, here's a solid comic book story. And then as you're reading through it, you can look up those scenes, and they happened in real life.
In the Whitechapel murders.
And so Alan Moore was really, really heavily investigating this.
Sure.
And then he said, this is the facts. And then I'm going to fill in a few things in between.
Sure.
And what then that'll make moments, this story. And so he went with a sort of a conspiracy theory of Jack the Ripper, and so he told that story. This is the conspiracy theory of Jack the Ripper, but all the people in it, all the events are how it played out in real life. And then he just sort of said, look, if this is the conspiracy, this is how close that could really have happened.
Sure.
Like, that's kind of a cool
Absolutely.
story.
Yeah. One of the other weird parts was like, maybe it was almost a cameo that he did, was like the Elephant Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was like he was like just somebody he could just talk to and not really have a conversation back, but he was almost like, here, I'm going to tell you what my true intentions are. And he's like, oh, you're there. You know, that was interesting. They said, yeah, Scotland Yard makes like an appearance.
Yes.
And they're like, I don't know if we can really do anything, or something that hasn't really hasn't presented itself, or because of the bad rep prostitutes got. They kind of said, well, that's just the nature of what they're in for, because that was prohibited and
yeah,
things
and
like that.
it does kind of, this story is I don't want to make a really big like criminology connection to this, but I think this story is relatable through decades and decades and decades. I mean, you look at this and you compare it to like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh,
Like, a lot of it was not investigated or not pursued because they were just like, oh, those are a different type of
sure.
the society, right?
Yeah.
And
I think
same thing here.
classism. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, this wasn't investigated really. And there weren't many clues because people didn't pay close attention to the people that lived in this area, but they paid enough attention every once in a while. So it's sort of like saying, hey, here's, someone was found and they'd been like this in this state for 3 days and no one
Right.
noticed, so
Exactly.
it's different.
Right. When people don't start showing up, people
Right.
start to notice. The more it happens, they're like, well, who was part of their other friend group that kind of did that? Oh, okay.
I thought they did a good job of sort of building up. If you
Yes.
know the story of Jack the Ripper, you know that sort of final Mary murder was like a really a big like mutilation and just a big long kind of ordeal. I mean, that final Jack the Ripper one said that it took hours and hours and hours and he just stayed all night and something like that. So
right.
So you knew it was kind of building to that. At least I knew it was going to build to at least that big scene. Some people might not know that.
Yeah, the way they showed the progression.
Yeah.
I think from the main villain that we find out, kind of just showing his descent and just how bad he got, and then his reasoning for it, on behalf of, he thought it was on behalf of his country. He was doing the service, and then it started out that way, and then it kind of slowly got to like the Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Then it was his duty, and then it was to like religion, and then it just got more selfish and more
just like,
yeah.
I can do this because I can.
Right. Yes. He used his status and his power to do that. And all these women, I mean, besides being not wealthy, I mean, they were all different ages. I would say. So it didn't matter really how old they were. Or why he was doing it. He just knew that that was his orders and he was fulfilling them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the driver that he had, Netley, I think that was his name.
Yes, he would like take him along.
Yes.
And that was in real life too, that they both sort of
in his horse and carriage
together.
And he becomes the accomplice. And because he starts, hey, are you going to help me with this? And because the more his madness kind of starts corrupting him, he's trying to keep his innocence and safeguard himself, but it just kind of devolves him too, until he ends up, helping him out. And even later in life, that just haunted him too.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if that he was real or he was fictionalized, but they did a good. I can see, like, looking back, I can see that's a really interesting point of just like, that's good storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also good that you are left with each person being, I think, responsible for their own role. Everyone had a small piece into this big puzzle here.
That's a good point.
And the other part of it too is that this book really brings back the idea of Jack the Ripper as like a myth. Like,
Yes.
so this happened, this person was never found. There's so much that you can research on it and sort of do this whole like true crime home sleuthing.
Yeah.
And you could say like, I think I figured it out. Like, I think I wonder if it's this person.
Right.
And it also shows that these type of stories are just in the general consciousness of just us. And whether it's influencing other serial killers or not, or influencing just other violence or not,
Sure.
this story should be told. And I think for it to be in a comic book form is pretty exciting for us, right? Like, so we're comic book readers and you're like, wow, how do you take a really convoluted story like this with so many different angles, and how do you turn it into just a comic? And I think that the medium worked. I like the idea that it was just really simple ink washy stuff, but I did find myself sort of trying to decipher some of the drawings because they get real muddy, right?
Yes.
And I don't want the story to get muddy.
Do you think this color version would help?
That's what I was wondering. I mean, I don't really know like if it was a better experience reading it or not, because maybe it was.
Sure.
But I also don't want to think that we can't read something that's black and white.
No. That's why I wanted the two
we've read a lot.
experiences.
Yeah, we've read a lot that's black and white.
Yep.
And for this story, we were comparing both of the comics here before the podcast. So mine being black and white when there's a lot of violence on the page. I mean, there's pages and pages and pages of just mutilation and cutting and stabbing and stuff.
Sure.
And then in Andrew's copy, it's colored. So it's just like red, a lot of red, right?
Yes.
But that red works really well because it just shows this unending
it adds more to the
content.
Gore.
Yes. And it just shows
the gore,
like
silhouette,
one thing after another.
The shadows. Shadowing, I think in silhouette you get more. All the sports.
Did you read a lot of the appendixes? And
no.
Stuff?
Oh, no.
I read the one from chapter 10. So chapter 10 is the whole like final death of Mary, and she gets very mutilated.
Oh, wow.
And Alan Moore wrote it, and he was just like, he read the coroner's report.
Okay.
He looked at photos. They took 2 photos of the scene because it's 1888 and they just had photography. So like they actually have photography of it.
Yeah.
So they took 2 photos of the scene, and then he read through all the notes and a lot of the sort of slow, I don't know how to say it. Like they did a lot of carving and took out pieces of her body and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so Alan Moore was like, I had to, in my mind, put it into a storyboard of like, what would be first, what would be second, what would be third? Like, how would someone go about
depicting
doing this?
Right. And if you weren't really there.
Yeah. Like, so when you read the comic, it's like there are panels and panels of.
Sure. I'm sure the work that went into this was no easy task.
No. And then Alan Moore said, so by the time he was done with this chapter, he said he pretty much was standing there in his mind and doing all of these, activities, because he's like, this is how it would have to have been done. First, her leg would have had to be cut, then this had to be cut, then that has. So he says, and that's as close as I ever want to be to this. Even Alan Moore was like, that was a lot. Right.
Sure.
So, yeah, it wasn't just like one cut and done. It was a lot.
And I mean, look at his other work. I mean, everything else is more, like we said at the beginning of the podcast, like more fictionalized, like he could use his imagination versus this is something that was actually happening in life. Yes, it was in a world where the pictures were just first starting to be developed and stuff like that. Electricity was first getting really more implemented and things like that. But the ability to like capture it and put it down on the page, that'd be something. So I applaud both these guys.
Like, he said he wanted to do service to Mary also, and not make, of
course,
it
honor the dead. Yeah,
not make it like a goofy thing.
Sure.
But he kept going back to the tea kettle. Do you remember like the tea kettle kept putting more logs and fabric on the fire so the fire would roar up. I'm
Okay.
sure with your color, like it showed maybe that a
yeah.
lot. I guess one of the notes that the police department made was like the tea kettle, all of the like the joints and the solder and like the was was boiled out, so it meant like this fire was roaring like
Oh.
for a long, long, long time. So whoever was doing this had to keep that fire really, really strong.
Yeah.
And they said that's because that was the only light in the room. So he had to keep this
Oh.
fire roaring while he was doing this,
Oh, so yeah, that's
which is just like, okay, that's another weird little detail too.
yeah, absolutely. And he just got more bloody with it, more detailed, and
And then while he was doing that, all of a sudden he was like transported to like a 1980s corporate, like,
oh yeah, when he went all off the deep end.
yeah, it was like
Yes.
it was like computers and stuff. He's like in a business
Yeah, he's like a
office,
floating head. Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh, I'm here," and then he was yelling at everybody like, "You're just accountants, and you're just at a
Yes.
bank, and we're out here, doing this real gritty stuff."
Right.
And that was Alan Moore just being like, "Hey, some people live this violent, tragic life, and some people are like accountants and bankers, like so."
Yeah.
I think it was Alan Moore just sort of making a comment on
Oh,
society.
right. There's this painting. It probably shows up way better in the colored version, but it's of like a gremlin almost, or like some sort of like deformed like mythical creature. Um,
Like it's on a cave wall or something like
yeah,
that.
it's like on a cave wall. It's in chapter 14, page 17, and it kind of depicts like where maybe the killer Gull was trying to get to, or it was like kind of emulating towards the end there, and like how he was being like depicted when they were drawing him up.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And
So if you look at that, yeah.
yeah, that's a really big difference. Wow. Same picture,
Right.
but that was one of those like they just sort of photocopied and put it in the comic at the
Yeah.
time.
It kind of says like it is a marvel beyond death. He has caught me to the life, caught me red-handed in the fourfold city. I am the movement in the paint, plump brush, and an agitation and the squeaking pen. That's Alan Moore.
Yeah.
He likes his detail. He likes his detail, but it does illustrate it, or just puts you in that mentality of what what he wanted Gull to like think about or narrate.
Yeah, and I also like that Alan Moore, like he gets to this climax in the story,
Yeah.
and it's usually like halfway or a little more than halfway, and then he spends a long time rebuilding all of his points.
Yes.
So he's kind of does the whole like, when you write a paper, you're like, in summary. That's sort of like Alan Moore doing in summary.
Yes, I would say he kind of does that with the detective. He's like, this is what I found. Or Gull is like, hey, I have 3 more on this list to go after.
To just come full circle to make sure that all of the
because he doesn't necessarily know where all these women are located. But he's like on the hunt. He's always traveling around town to all the different obelisks and things like that. I learned so much about the 4th dimension. Yeah.
You're like, all right, I got
or at least like
up.
the free concept of like Freemasonry. It's been kind of a concept like that's floated around on like just different circles and whatnot.
Yeah, well, like, and
I remember watching the History Channel.
Yeah, or like the Da Vinci's Code was.
Da
really
Vinci's Code. Yeah. I felt like Nicolas Cage and was National Treasure was kind of going around it
pieces
too.
of that too.
Pieces of it, but he goes really more into it, like where it's more like a cult. Or
yeah,
cult or something,
or where they're like
taking
taking assignments that no one else knows about.
And then it was funny at the
secret
end.
society.
They're like, actually, no, you went off the deep end. You went too hard on this.
No, you were the one that took it too seriously.
Yeah.
I also really liked in the story when he was like switching everyone's point of view a little bit, because you got the idea that now just because these scenes could be real one-sided, you kind of got a feeling that there were just so many different personalities that everyone was trying to tell the story.
And then like as you're making that point earlier, how do you think it became mythal? Like a myth or more of a legend, or we didn't have all the facts in one place,
and
or struggling to get all those facts in one place, like the
Well, and everyone's always drawn to like unsolved mysteries.
Of
So,
course.
of course, this is one of them where I was like, wow, this was just a violent act again and again and again
Yeah, very
and
violent
and
era.
then and then you still never had any leads. So then that person just decided to just stop,
Right.
and walk away. And so then
Yeah, he was like told, "Hey, we got nothing on it. We're gonna pin it on somebody. It's never gonna be truly solved."
right. And in real life, they said that they thought that the real Jack the Ripper, that's kind of what I found in other places. They
Sure.
thought the real Jack the Ripper had just like died of
Sure.
himself or
Yeah.
moved or
Oh,
you know,
so another when I was looking back and reviewing the characters, the guy who was the medium that was kind of helping when
oh
he towards the it was like on the second
yeah,
half of the
yeah,
book.
yeah, it was at the end.
Do you think that was more fictionalized or just maybe a way to
Oh,
connect
I
some of it?
think maybe that was like Alan Moore's bridge to be like where he wanted to
Sure.
kind of be
Or
a little
what the
more,
point was going to be. That could be.
yeah, where he wanted to be a little more out there.
Yeah. Because he kind of finally he doesn't necessarily push the detective to like keep going, but he kind of provides like a different outlet or a different perspective and idea. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm getting this really dark, spooky vibe from over here. He looks kind of shady. That guy, yeah, I've seen him in here before.
That one.
These actions don't add up. Can you look into this or ask this question?
Well, and see, that's what I really like. I like that these kinds of comics make you want to go and do research.
Sure.
Like, it's like, I'm going to figure out how historical this is.
Yeah.
Because even at the end here, the other page I had marked was this pentagram. Like, was that where
yes
the murders were? And like,
Right.
is that a real thing? And like, how much of this is just Alan Moore being like, what do you think of this theory?
Right.
And, it could be real. It could be a
Sure.
thing that really happened.
Yeah.
And I do like that they left it kind of open-ended at the end, a little questionable about
Sure.
Mary and stuff of like how
Yeah.
how
At
it
the
really
beginning of the
played
book,
out.
you're like, oh, these two old detectives are kind of reminiscing about this time that happened. And then you're like, oh, these were actually the two people and detectives that actually solved the case, per se.
Enough of it, right?
Yeah. Had some closure for it.
Because then they're sitting at the park bench at the end and doing the whole like,
Which I kind of like that when they do that in
yeah,
movies.
yeah. Well, they're
So
like,
if you look
"Here
at it
we
from
are."
like a cinematic look, you're like, okay, I can kind of see where Moore is going with this. And
Well, they said it. They even translated it into a movie.
they did.
I did not see that. Did you
I've
see it?
heard it just loosely is based on the book.
Okay.
Which
With Johnny Depp.
that happens, when you're adapting things. Some stuff is really successful when you're translating like a superhero comic to the big screen. We take that for granted, or
Yeah.
people are more critics of it. And then taking something like this to a big screen could be challenging. Or
Yeah.
a director or screenwriter might be like, we can do this. Maybe we can't do that. But
I think you'd still have to make this a little more energetic to get it to the
Sure.
screen. Like
right.
this could be maybe like a 5-episode Netflix series or something. Like I could see that a little
Yeah.
bit where you're building to this crescendo of it.
Sure.
But I wonder if this story, the whole like conspiracy theory part of it, I wonder if this might be a little too just sort of normal.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. I think Johnny Depp was in the adaptation.
Yeah, that's what it said. Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Johnny Depp, Ian Holm, Heather Graham. Yeah.
In
In
2001.
2001. So this would have been like not even, that'd have been like, let's see. This would have finished in 91. So yeah, like 9 years.
Give him a good 10 years to make your movie.
Sure. I'm sure Alan Moore was like, nah, it's garbage, but that's okay.
I wonder also if Alan Moore looks back on this comic and thinks of it as like, this is one of my best ones.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. Let's see what it got. From Hell won several Eisner Awards, including Best Serialized Story in 93, Best Writer, and Best Graphic Album Reprint 2000. It won the 1995 Harvey Award for Best Continuing or Limited Series, and the collected edition won the 2000 Harvey Award for Best Graphic Album of Previously Published Work.
So they kept running it as like a different, it episodic, and then they just collected it later.
Yes.
On? Oh.
Yeah. The book also won in 2000 the Eagle Award for favorite trade paperback reprint collection. The collected edition was top vote getter for the Comic Buyer's Guide Fan Award. So yeah, it must have got reprinted into this collected edition, and then the color edition, came out.
Well, the other thing too, through the book, there are, and we were talking about this again, there are like little interviews, little snippets of newspaper articles
Oh
at the
yeah,
time. So they did an investigation and they were interviewing people that were on the street or near, and they were just said, "What did you hear? What did you see?" And a lot of this is at the beginning of the book was um, case studies or journals from like the 1940s and 1950s and stuff.
interesting.
So that's why I didn't really connect. But then as it went on, then it became more like these were actual like eyewitness accounts.
Oh yeah, we were talking about like the
Yeah.
little intros before the chapters.
And I like the little eyewitness accounts because they were
that was a
just
hard time for me
people.
to connect, but I'm glad that connected with you.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Like you
Yeah.
could read some of the it was from the Astrologer in December 1888. So people were saying like, wow, these things to our minds are most astounding and apart from astrology are altogether inexplicable. So those were people commenting on it saying like astrology blows my mind, but this is inexplicable.
Sure.
Like
when sometimes like when writers or authors will put something at the beginning of the chapter, you're trying to figure out if there's a theme that goes with it.
Yeah, and usually
And-
it's someone in the story that's
Yeah,
like writing it.
and I guess that makes sense when you kind of describe it as like maybe it's an eyewitness account during this chapter that
Mhm.
could have happened. That's a good connection because that could change like how I would interpret it now.
So and I was reading about Mary,
Yeah, Mary
that
Kelly.
chapter 10. It said that above her, because she lived sort of ground level,
Yeah.
and this was in her little apartment area that the murderer came in and did all this.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
if you see at the very beginning, she says, "Oh no, murder, help!" And then he starts, killing her. The lady above her said that she heard her say murder, and she said she didn't really do anything about it because in the alley where they live, they heard that a lot. I was like, oh my gosh. So
Right.
people were always like yelling about violence and stuff. And so they became, but that's the other idea that Alan Moore is pushing is that they became so insensitized to murder and
Right.
violence that even though a Jack the Ripper was actually going through their
Sure.
area, they were still not responding. Like, remember that one guy was like attacking a person in the street?
Yeah.
And he was like, what do you care? And
Sure.
people just kept walking.
Or
Like,
he stole money from them. Or
yeah,
something,
like
yeah.
that was the
Theft, yeah.
that was the life they were living, is that there was so much violence that no one stepped in. So even when she heard someone yell, "Oh no, murder!" like she still didn't do anything.
Right.
So again, this was just one of those times in history where a lot could have been stopped if people around them just were not desensitized. So that's another Alan Moore thing, is like we can't be just
Right.
desensitized by this.
Yeah. Overall, after kind of discussing it and things like that, overall, what'd you think?
Okay, so usually I tell people like, hey, read comics, get into comics,
Right.
do stuff. This one, I feel like you should be like a seasoned reader a
Yeah,
little bit.
I
That's
agree.
kind of what I thought. Like you should be a mature reader, but you should also be able to piece together a comic book story and be ready for a long run.
Sure.
It's kind of like,
I would familiarize yourself with some of Alan Moore's other works.
yeah, that's a good
That
one
would
too.
help.
Yep. It's kind of like if you read a short story book, or if you're going to read a giant, 1,000-page novel, like you got to be ready for that.
Sure.
So you should be ready for
Because like
this.
the chapters are like 40 pages long.
I thought the chapters were, pretty long.
I thought so too. Like, I think an average comic book issue, I range from 20 to 25, 30 on the long end. So when it goes to 40, especially in that beginning part, was like, oh, okay, but at least there's chapter breaks. sometimes in these comics that are getting published today, they've gone away from chapter breaks,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of people in the comic book community that are like advocating, like, "Hey, don't do that. We need a good chapter break to breathe,
Yeah.
to analyze it, to sit with it for a little bit. Sure, if we want to keep going, that's great, but otherwise, you don't get to pause." And I think I read like 2 chapters at a time, maybe, or until I
Uh,
got to like the halfway, and then I could
yeah, that's
kind
true.
of dig into it a bit more.
And then you once you got really comfortable with the characters and what was happening,
Yes.
you kind of like naturally just
Yeah.
read faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the either version, the colored or the black and white, but
Yep.
if you can get the colored, that's probably pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing too is I think having a really basic idea or a history of just the Jack the Ripper story in general would help.
Sure.
Because it was kind of nice to generally know what happened in history and then read this,
Okay.
so you can kind of pick up a little bit on
Yeah. I think
maybe
I
what
didn't
he's
know
doing.
a lot about it, just kind of like it happened.
Yeah,
So that was informative to like, okay, this happened. And like you said, this would encourage readers like myself to like find out, hey, what actually happened, do a little more research
yeah. So
after
like
that.
this is one possible explanation,
Right.
which is cool to
Yeah.
be like, well, that's one.
Absolutely.
This is one conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what other people
sure
thought.
the British royalty is like, don't tell this story.
Right. Think of all like the werewolf stories and things like that that kind of came from it.
Yeah, I mean that's the other part of it. There's a lot of horror monsters out there,
Sure.
like werewolves and Dracula and stuff,
Yeah.
and then there's like these kinds of things
Sure.
which are just as horrific.
Yeah. Absolutely.
More,
Yeah. And yeah, I agree with you. I think somebody who's comfortable reading graphic novels, even outside of like Marvel and DC, kind of getting into those image and indie dark horse stories. Um, I think, and then getting comfortable with like some of the work that Alan Moore has done. Especially we talked about like V for Vendetta. Obviously, Watchmen was like probably his highest like praised work.
yeah,
And but those are both like different genres, but it kind of helps you see how more things and kind of his progression. Um, and he still kind of does similar work to this now, where he'll still like pick like, oh, I want to do something about the London English side during this time period. He loves doing that. I think he probably does that more
hmm
now than he has in the past, or this country, or this time in history, or things like that. He's a very big proponent of that now. He'll tell you that. Comics were something that he kind of looks back on and he's like, hey, I did that. That was cool.
yeah. Well, and I you can tell I think that this is a story he wanted to tell,
Sure.
and it feels very much like him, just like Tim Burton has a feel for stories. I think this is like a feel for Alan Moore
Right.
stories of just how far he can push the needle on a real life thing and just see if he can influence you with his own storytelling. And some people might read this and be like, that was Jack the Ripper. That's what it was. That's the story. You know,
Right.
they might just see it as that was the truth.
Yeah.
That's the real deal.
And then Eddie Campbell would go on to do a lot more indie work and a lot more underground work.
Good point. I didn't even look him up at all.
So like one of the big things he did was like Bacchus, the 8 Ball Kid, Alec, I guess, was a very big story series. Um, Eddie Campbell in Little Italy, that sounds funny. Um, and he just kind of liked to just explore the medium. His interviews are really good too. I would definitely, or just go meet him at a con and just talk to him. Yeah, just like, hey, I seen your work. Can you kind of tell me about it, or what you've been doing, or where did you get these ideas from? He loves to talk about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
he can kind of seem quiet at first,
Yeah.
but then once you talk to him about it, get him more comfortable. He was a delight to me. I mean, he still lives over there, and he just kind of does tours and stuff. But I'm glad he's still like,
It's cool he's in the comic
and I'm
book
glad he
world
could
still.
still kind of available. He's more available to meet and just have that conversation, and he's still talking about his work and stuff like that. Whereas Alan Moore doesn't really talk about that kind of stuff. He's a little more private. But he's starting to do these like looking back and like here what's makes a good storytelling.
Mhm,
He likes to
mhm.
do that. Kind of he's like the mentor now. And these are things that excite me now. I'm like, hey, that's cool. Like you did all this cool stuff, Alan Moore. You earned it.
Like, you live this life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been our thoughts on Bam Pow Comic Hour about From Hell. And we hope you enjoy this journey learning about this book. And yeah, check it out. Check out what the hype's about. Make your own opinions. We'd love to hear about it in the comments. And
It's
just
one of the more acclaimed, yeah, if you're gonna have sort of a,
absolutely, it's kind of up there in one of those, hey, 50 graphic or 100 graphic novels you should read, check out, and explore. We're always looking for those graphic novels as well that are on our list and still continuing to tell the tale. All right, this has been another great episode of Man Pow Comic Hour. This is Andrew Glonner.
and Chris Ramos,
Signing off.
goodbye.